Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm really excited to bring you another video with some of the brand new Stampin' Up products that have just come out in the 2018 catalog. And for this really fun giraffe card, I used a reverse stamping technique, and I'm going to show you today how to do that. So this is the card that we're going to be making, and I'm using the new Animal Outings set. And as always, I apologize for my overhead lighting. And this was one of my favorite sets in the new catalog. I love animals. So this has a rhino with a cute bird on it. It's got a tree with an adorable little frog. I absolutely love this kangaroo, and he's got a little koala in the pouch, and the giraffe, and some really great sentiments to go along with it. So I really loved this stamp set. So we're going to be using the giraffe, and as you can tell, there's only one giraffe facing in one direction, but I'm going to show you how to reverse it and have them facing towards each other. So then we're also going to be using some words from the Tropical Chic set. I'm using the You're the Greatest. This has some really beautiful tropical leaves, flowers, kind of backgrounds and sentiments. So we're using the sentiment from that. And then I'm also using the tropical dies. I'm going to be using the large overall background die and also the outline from one of the leaves. And one of the things I loved about this set is that the leaves come in two parts. So like on our card, you can just use the outline of the leaf, or you could also die cut or emboss this inside section to make a detailed die cut, and all three of the leaves do that. And then all three of the leaves do that, and then there's also an outline for the flower that goes with that stamp set. So one of the things that makes the reverse stamping really easy is a stamp positioner. So real quick, for the cardstock, I've just got a standard size yellow card base, just 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock cut and folded in half for the card base. Then I have a sheet of brown that's been cut into a 3 by 3 1/4 square. A piece of green that's been cut to 3.5 by 3.5 inch square. A little extra of the same green for the leaf die cut, and then just enough of white cardstock for both of the giraffes. And because I'm using alcohol-based markers, I like to do a 110-pound cardstock, so this is a little bit of a heavier weight. And then we're also using some of this really pretty new textured ribbon that's in the Stampin' Up catalog. This is the Granny Apple Green, and it's green texture with a white edge, and it is really, really pretty. I really love that. So we're just going to take about a 5-inch piece, just enough to put it across the front of your card. So I'm using a stamp positioner to do my reverse stamping technique, and Stampin' Up has come out with a new stamparatus. I don't have it yet, but you can use any stamping positioning tool that you have. So what you're going to want is the stamp that you're going to be reversing and another large stamp. So this is just a polka dot pattern stamp. It can be a clear or a rubber stamp, but what you want is a large piece, because we're going to be using the back side of this stamp. So not the polka dotted raised side, but we need a large surface area on the back. So I've got the type of platform that has some foam inside, and we're going to remove that foam. And we don't need that. And I'm going to place my giraffe stamp onto the bottom inside of my positioner, and I'm going to lay my large background stamp again with the smooth side down towards the head of my giraffe, just to make sure that I've got it in a good spot. I'm going to close my lid, and I'm going to pick up that large background stamp, and I'm going to press down really, really well, just to make sure that all that texture is stuck to the lid of my positioner. And then I'm going to take some Memento black ink and ink up my giraffe head. And for techniques like this, I like to use some of the smaller ink pads. If you use a larger ink pad, you might end up getting ink on the edges. It will wipe clean, but this just makes your life a little bit easier. And so I'm using Memento Black because I'm going to be using alcohol-based markers. So I've inked up my stamp like normal. I'm going to close the lid and I'm going to press down. And the lid's not going to close all the way, and that's okay, but don't force it because you don't want to break your hinge or anything. So just kind of tap that down, carefully lift it up so that they don't stick, and see how your image looks. Now, if you feel like you need to add a little bit more ink, that's what's great about the positioner, is you can go in and ink it again and close the lid again. And that way you know you've got a really good coverage of ink. So in this next step, you want to work pretty quickly. I'm taking a stamp chamois and I'm cleaning that off, the stamp that was in the base, and I'm moving that to the side. I'm going to place my paper down in the corner, use my magnets to hold that in place, and actually we'll move these down there. And now I'm going to press down and lift up carefully. And now I have a really nice reversed image. Isn't that great? So sometimes it might not be perfectly crisp. Once you color it, that's really not going to show that much. But if you have a couple of spots that really haven't got a lot of detail, you can just use just a fine tip pen and just kind of fill some of those in if you need to. So then we're just gonna take our chamois, wipe that off, and we are ready to move on. So now I'm ready to stamp my giraffe in the normal position, and you could do that in your stamp positioner or on a block. I've just transferred my stamp over to a block and stamp these out. And they don't, because we're gonna cut them out, they don't need to be straight or in any particular position. And so now I've got a really great reverse image of that giraffe stamp. So now I'm going to color in both of my giraffes, and I am using the Stampin' Up Stampin' Blends markers. I've got the light and dark Daffodil Delight, and then I have one of the new colors that is soft suede. I'm going to be using the light soft suede. There is also a dark soft suede. So using the fine tip point, the right side there, so using the fine tip point, I'm going to use the lighter daffodil and color in both of my giraffes, leaving the spots uncolored. So I've colored in both of the giraffes in the lighter yellow, leaving the spots uncolored. And I'm going to go back in and add a little bit of shading and shadowing with the darker Daffodil Delight yellow. And I'm going to do that on both giraffes. And now that I've added that darker shade, I'm going to go back over with the lighter shade to blend those yellows together. You could leave it like that. It just kind of depends on how dark you'd like your shadows to be. But just kind of quickly go over that, and it just blends those two colors in really nicely together, so you have a really pretty kind of shaded effect. Now I'm going to take the brown and I'm going to color in the tops of their little horns and also all the spots. So now I'm done with all my coloring, really quick and simple. And there is a die cut set that goes with this stamp set, but I didn't get it, so I'm just going to go old school and use my scissors and cut out both of the giraffes, just leaving a little bit of a white border around the edges. So now I'm done coloring and cutting both of my giraffe heads. I'm going to set those off to the side. And on my smaller sheet of green, I'm going to take some soft suede ink. I'm going to ink up the sentiment. And I'm going to stamp it on that smaller piece of green cardstock. And now I'm going to take one of the leaves and kind of play around and position it so that the words are going to show on the die cut. I'm taking a little piece of repositionable tape. Actually, I'm going to get two. And you could use washi tape, painter's tape, any type of low-tack tape. And I'm going to tape that in place. And then I'm also going to take the largest of the multiple leaves dies and center that in the middle of my larger piece of green. And if you have trouble eyeballing it, you could get out your ruler, but I'm just gonna kind of eyeball and tape that into place onto my cardstock. And then I'm gonna bring my Big Shot over and die cut both of these. So I have run those through the die cut machine, and I'm going to carefully remove the tape. And I've got my leaf with the words, and then I've also got this larger piece. I'm going to carefully remove that. And this has lots of little bits and pieces. So I really love the Sizzix die brush tool. It's a foam pad with a roller brush, and it makes it so easy to run that over your die and pop out all those little bits and pieces that are in your die. So it works great on your cardstock, but then it also removes the cardstock from inside your die as well. So you just roll that brush back and forth and it just cleans that out. I honestly don't think I could live without this tool. If you have any type of detailed dies, it is perfect. So now I've got my two die cut pieces, and I'm going to be sponging on a little bit of color with a sponge dauber, and I'm using one of the new Stampin' Pad designs. So this is the Granny Apple Green. This is a new color, and this is the new stamp pad design. So it's very thin. I really like that it's not too bulky, so you can store a lot more. And so there's a little groove on the side that you want to kind of put your finger in and lift. It's just going to hinge open. You're going to open it all the way. Hope you can see all that on camera. And then you're going to slide that pad down into place. So that way your ink is always face down when you store your pad, and that keeps your pads nice and juicy. So I'm going to be using a light touch with the sponge dauber. I want to get my hand in the way, and just going to tap the sponge dauber onto the ink pad, and then tap that onto my leaves. And if you want to, if you're working on a work surface that you don't want to get ink on, you can lay a piece of scrap paper down. So I'm not pushing too hard because I like the texture. I hope you can see that on camera, that the sponge gives. So I'm not bearing down, I'm not blending or swirling, I'm just doing an up and down kind of dabbing, tapping motion on those leaves. And I want the ink a little heavier in some spots, a little lighter in others. That just adds a really nice texture, and I'm staying within that kind of square and just inking on the leaves. Then on the leaf with the words, I'm just going to lightly go around the words themselves, and that kind of will add a little bit of texture and highlight the words. You just don't want to cover it up too much. So now I've got that texture, and I am done with my inking. So you're just going to place your thumb in that groove there and pull, raise that up, and then just close that hinge down. Make sure that that snaps closed, and you're done. So that is the new style of ink pad, and we are ready to put our card together. So I'm going to take the larger piece of green that I die cut and add some adhesive all the way around that square. And I'm going to place that in the center of my brown cardstock. And now I'm going to add my giraffes. I'm going to turn them over, and for small details like this, I really like using a glue pen. So I'm just going to put some glue pen on the back there and just slip the neck of one of the giraffes right down in the die cut there and press that down. Do the same on the other. Just kind of lift that edge up there and slide that down in. And now I've got my two giraffes that are facing each other, kind of sticking their heads out through the leaves. And I'm going to adhere this to my cardstock base. I'm going to put this kind of up towards the top a little to leave room for everything down below. And on my piece of ribbon, I'm also going to use my tape runner and just run a line of adhesive down that ribbon. Line that up across the bottom. Get that straight. Run my fingers across, and then I'm just going to turn it over and take my scissors and trim off the tails. So I've added the ribbon to my card, and on the back of my leaf with the sentiment, I have added some foam dots, and I've removed the adhesive off the back, and I'm just going to place that over the ribbon and have it overlapping the top just a little bit there. And there is our finished card with the reverse stamping of the two giraffes that are talking to each other. This is a really easy technique to do. Like so, stamp positioner will help you a lot with this technique. It makes a big difference. So again, I've used some brand new products from Stampin' Up. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and also check out my channel. I have lots of other card tutorials and product reviews for you. I hope you have a wonderful day. This is Heather. Thanks for joining me. Bye.